What's going on? Video. As always, I just quickly want to say thank you for clicking on the video today. It does mean a lot to me. I also just want to quickly mention there's a link to submit a question for these videos on the Google form. There's also a link to join our Discord in the description if you are interested. But today we're actually not doing advice, or we're not talking about mental health. I want to talk about something a little different today. And I like to do these videos every once in a while when something really bugs me or something really big is going on that I really care about. And I want to talk about the Ubisoft problem. And if you're not aware, over the last few days, well, at the time of recording this, the last few days, Assassin's Creed Shadows was released. And the game initially was getting good reviews from journalists. IGN gave it an 8 out of 10. Some outlets even gave it a 9. And currently, at the time of recording, Metacritic has it sitting at an 81 for the critic score. And just for a little bit of context, Assassin's Creed Valhalla also received an 8 out of 10. It also got an 80 on Metacritic. So overall, people are saying that it's a better experience than the previous game. For people that don't know, Assassin's Creed sort of changed its format close to probably 5 years ago. More than that, I don't know. But, it changed its format with the game Assassin's Creed Origins, where it went from a really kind of like open world game to a more RPG structure. And the game was enjoyed by people. They thought it was a nice fresh breath of air, but that it still had its issues. And Odyssey then came out a couple years later, and people thought it was better. Now, Odyssey started the issue of turning Assassin's Creed into a fucking looter shooter, and Valhalla fixed a lot of those issues. I enjoyed Valhalla a decent amount when it came out. I felt like the game had a lot going for it. I think that it had plenty of issues, but I think overall it improved the formula that Odyssey and Origins really were looking for. Valhalla really kind of got rid of a lot of the issues that I had and what a lot of other people had with Odyssey, which was they got rid of the weapon tier system and they made it feel less like a looter shooter and more like a true RPG. And one of the criticisms was the fact that it really kind of felt like a knockoff Witcher 3, which I agree with. It really did kind of feel like a knockoff Witcher 3. And with this new game is that it's been through a lot of controversy. When it got unveiled, people were kind of excited. And then as trailers started to come out, they saw that there was a black samurai and immediately thought that the game was woke and garbage without really actually playing the game or giving it a chance. And, it went through several different delays because of all the controversy. The game looked fine. It looked like Valhalla 2.0 from trailers. It got delayed like 3 or 4 times. It was originally supposed to come out in October, and it just kept getting pushed back. They just kept pushing it back. And I think that this really represents a big problem with Ubisoft. The game came out and people were liking it. Well, critics were liking it. And then actual players got their hands on the game, and it's got some issues. I think right off the bat, I'll say that it seems to be a better version of Valhalla. I didn't buy the game because I don't pay full price for Ubisoft games at this point in my life. I would rather just invest in something better. If I'm spending $70 of my hard-earned money as a 21-year-old, I would rather invest in a better time. But anyways, so basically, players are saying that it's better than Valhalla, but it's still not great. And a lot of the concern comes from the fact that it is just a lot of what Valhalla and Odyssey did wrong and just continued. And things have been fixed like the combat and some of the exploration stuff. But Odyssey and Origins really started the issue of making the world too big. And Valhalla had a way too massive open world. Now, I want to give you some numbers here. I checked. I currently have 108 hours played on Valhalla. I did not complete the main story because I feel like the main story was kind of bad and I spent a lot of time doing the side content. I completed pretty much all the side content except for a handful of things. So keep in mind, I have 100 hours played. I never beat the story fully, and I did almost all the side content in over 100 hours of gameplay. Now, that is a major issue for me because it really represents a problem of bloating in these games. Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft in general over the last couple years, and really for a while now, has really focused on making giant worlds rather than let's make something interesting. And in the background, I have Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is a game I've been enjoying, but it suffers from the same issue. The game is just overly fucking bloated. There feels like there is something in every corner for you to go get. And it's nothing that feels worth value. Like, it feels like stuff that I shouldn't need to spend a lot of time going for. It should be stuff that's either unlocked or stuff that really is meaningless. It's like weapon attachments and fucking weapon scraps just to make the current weapon that I'm holding better. And I think that that really sets a dangerous precedent for gaming, is when you have these games that are based about just wasting your fucking time. And I already have a lot of time in Breakpoint, and like I said, I'm having fun, but a lot of it is just bloated ass fucking content. It's not good content. A lot of it is just go here, kill this group of enemies, get a new weapon. And Assassin's Creed has been that way for the last couple of years. And I heard somebody today describe it in a perfect way. I haven't heard of this term until kind of recently, but I kind of get it. They call it a podcast game. And what a podcast game is that a podcast game is a game that you play where you put music on in the background, you put a podcast on in the background, you put a show on in the background. And that is a perfect representation for what a Ubisoft game is. These are games that are just meant to be like, just turn your brain off mush. And they really are that. And it's crazy to me that these games are getting 8 out of 10 by game journalists. Because I want to make this clear. I don't think that Ubisoft games are awful. I just think that they're okay. And that's almost a worse sentence to me than bad. Because games like Elden Ring, that were getting 10s out of 10s, that deserve 10 out of 10s, are compared to games like this, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, games like Valhalla, games that are getting 8 out of 10s, but are just carried by their bloated gameplay. You're telling me that Breakpoint, Valhalla, and Shadows are all 2 points away from Elden Ring? So you're saying to me Elden Ring gets a 100% and Valhalla gets an 80%. That doesn't make much sense to me. Like, to me, this is like a big product of game journalism where they like to give games high scores. And some film critics do it too. But I really feel like it's a big issue in gaming, where we give games 8, 9s, and 10s to shit that doesn't deserve it. And I just don't get it. Because do you really think that games like Valhalla deserve a B rating? I don't think so. And I put 100 hours into that game. So it's not like I hated it or that I found it to be awful. I just felt like the game had lots of issues. And that while I liked it, I just play it every couple months and play for like 10 hours at a time. And once again, put on a podcast. Like, it is one of those games, and that's not a good thing. I think that games like that are really, really bad examples of how gaming should be handled. Let's take Elden Ring, for example. Elden Ring is a game that I put a lot of time into, a game that I 100%ed, a game that I have all the achievements for, and I went for all of the extra endings. That game gave me plenty of time and like experience in the game. And there wasn't really points where was so bored with what I was doing, I wanted to put on a podcast. But you know, in this gameplay, when I was playing Breakpoint for this video, I had a fucking podcast on. I was listening to JRE. And I think that amplifies the issue of what's going on in gaming right now. So many of these fucking games are charging $60 or $70 in some cases, and just filling it with bloat because instead of making a good quality game, they are basing it off of the time that you play. And I think Ubisoft is the worst at this because really all of their games are like this. It's pretty hard to find a Ubisoft title that isn't designed to be these games that you play for like 100 hours. Like, let's take Outlaws, right? Outlaws had a lot of the same issues where they're just has a giant map and it's just designed to basically melt your brain for 100 hours while you listen to Joe Rogan or you listen to fucking whatever you listen to, old Opie and Anthony, whatever you like, right? This is one of those companies that loves to fucking do that. And I think that it's really dangerous because it still lets game developers know that we will settle for mediocre. Because while I don't think these games are awful games, they're not good either. Like, you know, when's the last time you put on an AC game and you thought to yourself, this game is as good as Elden Ring, or this game is as good as The Witcher 3? RPGs that are truly immersive and games that are designed to keep you engaged for 100 hours based off of good content. And it just it's just upsetting to me that we are still, some of you, not all of you, some of you are still paying for these fucking games at full price. If you bought Assassin's Creed Shadows at full price on launch, what are you doing? Like I said near the start of the video, I haven't paid for a Ubisoft game at full price in years. And that's because they've broken my trust many, many times with their franchises. I genuinely cannot think of the last. It might have been Odyssey. Odyssey might have been the last straw for me, where these games aren't bad, but they're so mediocre and just such a waste of time that it just does not feel like there is a point to playing the game. It just feels like the game is trying to keep you engaged as long as possible, hoping that you purchase a microtransaction. And that's exactly what they want to do to you. Games like games like Assassin's Creed Unity started that shit, where Assassin's Creed Unity was charging people in-game currency to make things easier. And I didn't buy it then, and I don't think that you should buy it. And it's concerning to me how many of you are buying it. There's a reason why Assassin's Creed Valhalla and games like Assassin's Creed Shadows are so long. It's because they know that you can waste money on this shit. They know that you will. If you find it annoying, they'll get you to fucking spend some money to upgrade your gear. And I think that the biggest issue with this shit for me has to do with the fact that Ubisoft used to be great. I grew up on Ubisoft games. I grew up on games like Far Cry 3 and 4. I played a shit ton of it. I played a lot of Black Flag growing up. I played a lot of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood growing up. I played a lot of these games that I grew up with and playing the shit out of. But games that were truly immersive, games that were truly fantastic, weren't based off of how can I make the most money off of my player base. They were games that were fully intact at launch. They were not full of empty promises. They didn't have multiple delays. It wasn't full of this microtransaction bullshit. And on top of it, I haven't even talked about it, but Assassin's Creed Shadows voice acting is some of the worst I've heard in video games in a long time. And a lot of people are trying to cope by saying, just turn on the Japanese dub, which to me is one of the worst arguments I've ever heard for why a video game has shitty voice acting. I don't think that having a separate dub is a good reason to why I should have to experience shitty dub in my native language, especially in a game that is developed in a company that primarily speaks fucking English. So I just think that this needs to be our sign to stop paying for this stupid shit. Like, genuinely stop. If you know your friends are buying this shit, tell them to stop. Let Ubisoft know that we don't want to play this shit. We don't. And even if they're making small improvements, Ubisoft can be good. Games like Far Cry 3 were near perfection. The story is fantastic. The gameplay feels great. The side content is engaging. But as soon as they start putting rarity levels and stupid shit like that into Far Cry, you lose me. And I think that that is one of the major red flags that I found in Ubisoft titles lately, is that they all want to be these looter shooter MMO like live service experiences. And I always think to, Recon, and I always think back to Far Cry 6, which were games that introduced weapon rarities into perfectly good franchises, that's not what they needed. Nobody said, you know what I want in my Far Cry experience? Green, purple, and gold guns. Just because games like Destiny did it, or games like Borderlands did it, and they think that those games are successful. Those games made lots of money. Let's do it. You know why Destiny 2 is good? It's because they charge their players, or you know why Destiny 2 makes so much money? It's because they charge their players $60 every fucking year to play their goddamn video game. It's because they charge $10 every month and a half, probably, to get a fucking season pass. It's because if you want to make your fucking hunter look cool in the game, you need to pay for fucking silver. Those aren't good reasons for a game to exist. And I think that a perfect way of summing it up is me and Noah were talking today about Daredevil. And the Netflix CEO at the time said, hey, if we want to make money, we need to make a good show. And Marvel was just concerned about money. And Netflix came back and was like, well, if we make a good show, we will get money. And I think that that's what Ubisoft is forgetting. Games like Far Cry 3 and 4 weren't full of this microtransaction bullshit, but we still love them. I still love those games. When I go back and play those games about once a year, I genuinely enjoy the experience. Games like Assassin's Creed Black Flag were amazing, and they weren't full of microtransaction bullshit. And I think that's something that we need to put our foot down in gaming, especially if they're going to start charging us $70 fucking a game, especially in the economy that we live in. So, I know that today I just kind of rambled on today about Ubisoft, but I just kind of wanted to get on here and talk about it because I find it absurd. And the game doesn't look that good. I will say that. I think it looks fine and that it's probably better than Valhalla, but I will not be paying $70. So, yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about today, guys. As always, there's a link to join our Discord in the description. There was also a link to submit a question on the Google form, and I promise in the next video we'll be back to mental health, but I just wanted to hop on and talk about this a little bit. So, yeah, thank you guys for making it to the end of the video, and I want to say I really appreciate you, and I hope that you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you on Monday. So, thank you guys for watching. Peace!